Welcome. I'm Geeta Mohan and you're watching World Today. Now, the tariff threats of President Trump is not just to make America great again. It is also about saving those whom he believes to be his friends. In a latest tariff threat to Brazil, US President said he would impose 50% tariff on the country starting the 1st of August. He criticized President Lula da Silva for a witch hunt against former president and dear friend Jair Bolsonaro and said it should be immediately stopped.
A pope and now an emperor. Donald Trump has donned the hat of a ruler, this time dictating leaders of other nations how to manage their domestic affairs. The latest target is Brazil's President Lula. US President Donald Trump has threatened to impose 50% tariff on Brazil starting August 1st. He has shown his support for his ally and former Brazilian President Bolsonaro. Trump believes President Lula has orchestrated a witch hunt against Bolsonaro, and this should be immediately stopped. If it's not stopped, then Brazil faces the ire of Trump. But POTUS later did a U-turn. He said Brazil could escape tariffs if the country or its companies decide to manufacture product within the US. Lula reacted by vowing to reciprocate if Trump executes his threat. This is the first in many months when another leader of a country has replied sternly to Trump's tariff threat. Earlier, President Lula had condemned the manner in which Trump threatened BRICS. So we don't want an emperor. Our countries are sovereign. If Trump issues tariffs, other countries have the right to do the same. There is the reciprocity law. I think it's not responsible for a president from a country like the US to threaten the world with tariffs on social media. Trump had earlier threatened 25% tariffs on Colombian experts that would grow to 50% if the country did not accept deportees from the US. Colombia finally gave in to avoid tariffs. But President Trump did not stop at this. While hosting 5 African leaders at the White House, he praised Liberian President Joseph Boakai for his stronghold on English language, in spite of the fact that English is an official language of Liberia.
Well, thank you. It's such good English, such beautiful. Where did you learn to speak so beautifully? Where were you educated? Where?
Yes, sir.
In Liberia.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's very interesting. It's beautiful English.
Sure.
I have people at this table can't speak nearly as well.
Very good, sir. Thank you.
This is not the first time President Trump has acted like that. When Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky visited the White House, Trump accused him of gambling with World War III.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering all
position
these
to
questions.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly what
this.
you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head?
During a press conference with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Trump complimented Merz for his good English and asked if it was as good as his German.
English, because you speak such good English, is it as good as your German, would you say? Do you feel more comfortable?
No, it's not my mother tongue, but I try to understand almost everything and to speak as good as I can.
Very good. You know, it's an achievement, actually.
Trump has prioritized English language as part of America First platform. During a 2015 presidential debate, Trump asserted that US is a country where we speak English. In March, he had signed an executive order making English the official language of the US. Trump's unpredictable approach towards international leaders on their visit to the White House leaves many dignitaries wondering of the treatment they would receive. With Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today.
In Liberia.
Now in Gaza, the humanitarian crisis deepens with each passing day, and now heartbreaking images from overwhelmed hospitals are stirring global concern. Take a look at this report.
The humanitarian crisis in Gaza shows no signs of easing. Every day, new images emerge of Palestinians struggling to find food, shelter, and safety. But now, heartbreaking scenes from Gaza's hospitals are drawing growing concern around the world. Doctors on the ground say fuel shortages have become so severe that they've been forced to place multiple premature babies in a single incubator just to keep them alive. It's a desperate measure, highlighting the gravity of the situation. The director of Al Ahli Hospital posted a photograph on social media of multiple newborn babies sharing a single incubator. Meanwhile, the United States has imposed sanctions on Francesca Albanese, the United Nations Special Rapporteur for the occupied Palestinian territory. Albanese has been one of the most outspoken voices documenting Israel's actions in Gaza and calling for accountability. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced the sanctions, accusing her of carrying out what he called a campaign of political and economic warfare against the United States and Israel. The images of newborns huddled together in a single incubator are not just a symbol of a broken health system. They are a reminder of the innocent lives caught in the crossfire as political battles rage on globally. With Neha Kumari, Bureau Report, India Today.
There is a lot to unpack over here, from the foreign policy of Trump administration to how he's engaged with world leaders. To discuss this and more, I'm being joined by John Rosamando, geopolitical and national security strategist. John, thank you so much for joining us. Let's begin with the first part of the conversation on Trump's foreign policy and his interactions. It just seems like it has been a little high-handed, if you'd agree with me, on how he's dealt with his allies, partners, key strategic partners, Japan, South Korea, and the tariff war, which continues.
Well, let's put it this way. President Trump's slogan is America First. It means putting the economic interest of the United States before everything else. When it comes to Japan, President Trump has been a critic of its economic policies for 40 years. The president back in the 1980s talks about Japan dumping cheap steel onto the American market, and it's what he felt were unfair trading practices. So this is all aimed at getting other nations to reduce their tariffs so that they can therefore have U.S. goods sold in their markets.
Right. But again, John, the way he's interacted maybe with the African leaders, complimenting a president on his English to a country's president where English is their first and their official language, clearly shows that there isn't much in terms of the homework that the president should do when he's meeting with even smaller country presidents and third world countries.
Well, let's put it this way. It's Donald Trump's style. He is that way with everybody in his personal interactions and so forth. So, it's just him, Donald being Donald, and whether people like it or dislike it. I mean, that's up to them. But it's just the way he is with everyone, and people shouldn't take it personally.
Okay. The larger perspective on his foreign policy as a national security expert. John, how are you reading what's happening on the ground in Gaza and the war that continues, the kind of support we're seeing and the partnership that we see between Israel and the United States of America, despite what we see on the ground in terms of civilians being killed in Gaza?
Well, let's look at it this way. You have the United Nations, which is supposed to be a neutral operator. Where is the criticism by Francesca Albanese of Hamas using Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City as a hospital? As a base of operations, rather. Or Mohammed al-Sinwar, the late leader of Hamas's terrorist wing, using another hospital as a base of operations. So under the Geneva Convention of 1949, that removes the protection afforded to hospitals by the convention that they're used for military purposes. Where's the condemnation of Hamas for using places like schools, mosques, apartment buildings to launch rockets and those sorts of things. I think that what we're seeing here is that we need is a call by President Trump for the United Nations to get out of being a biased, belligerent in this war, and to be a neutral and unbiased mediator.
Well, John, then the larger question and perspective coming from the international community and the United Nations alike is that you say civilians are being used as human shields, but civilians are not even allowed to leave Gaza. The gates are shut for them. Also, Gideon Levy, I interviewed earlier, had said that he stays in Israel in a compound that's highly protected with hospitals and the military defense headquarters adjacent to each other. Would that not fall under the same convention and say that then that's kosher too?
Well, let's put it this way. We're dealing with, let's put some context here. I mean, in Gaza, you have Hamas having used billions in humanitarian aid to build military tunnels under civilian buildings. And what about Egypt? You know, the Rafah crossing has remained closed. And I, had spoken with an Egyptian diplomat who said they fear that if they let, Palestinians into Egypt, that they'll be involved in terrorism. And don't forget that, after the fall of Morsi, that Hamas was involved with training Muslim Brotherhood terrorists inside of Egypt. So there are a lot of concerns here. And what we need to do is look at a governance for Gaza, that doesn't involve Israel or Hamas. Maybe get the Arab League involved with creating a new government to control Gaza so that we can end this humanitarian crisis.
Right. But John, again, we're running out of time. But the fact is, and the argument very clearly by the Arab world is that if they allow even women and children to leave Gaza, then they're serving the purpose of Israel. It is a cleansing of Gaza. And Israel will have rights over that land, something that the Arab world does not want. But on that note,
let's put it this way. The Arabs had rights over Gaza. I mean, Egypt had rights over Gaza for 15 years, didn't do anything to create a Palestinian state. 2005, the Palestinians had an opportunity to turn Gaza into a Singapore or something like that. Instead, they decided to turn it into a terrorist emirate. So if you have terrorists who are threatening your homes, what are you going to do with the people there? I think
but
that
ethnic cleansing is not the option, John. You cannot have so much blood on your hands and think it's okay. There are children, more than 15,000 children, John, who've been killed. Somebody will have to take accountability. John Rosamando. We have completely run out of time. Thank you so much for joining me here on the network. Russia launched hundreds of drones and missiles at Ukraine overnight, soon after President Trump had sharply criticized Russian President Vladimir Putin for taking only meaningless steps toward peace and settlement talks. A curious pattern seems to be emerging with a direct link between what US President Donald Trump says and what Russian President Vladimir Putin does.
I want people to stop dying. I want to end that war. I'll end that war between those two countries in 24 hours. It won't even take that long.
Despite repeated claims by US President Donald Trump that he could end the Russia-Ukraine war swiftly, the conflict continues to escalate with each passing day. A curious pattern seems to be emerging. Russian strikes follow Trump's criticism of Russian President Vladimir Putin. After Trump criticized Putin for showing lack of interest in resolving the crisis and faking to be nice, Russia launched largest aerial attack, deploying 728 drones and 13 missiles against Ukraine.
we get a lot of bullshit thrown at us by Putin for you want to know the truth. He's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless.
After Trump said no progress was made following a lengthy phone call between him and Putin, Russia attacked Ukraine with 539 drones and 11 missiles.
I'm very disappointed with the conversation I had today with President Putin because I don't think he's there. I don't think he's there. And I'm very disappointed. Well, it's not, I'm just saying, I don't think he's looking to stop.
But Kremlin has a calmer approach. You know, we treat it quite calmly. In general, Trump has quite a tough style in terms of the phrasing he uses. We hope to continue our dialogue with Washington and our course aimed at repairing the badly damaged bilateral ties. But even when President Trump stood up for his counterpart, regretting the absence of Putin in G7 and criticizing leaders for kicking out Russia from the then G8 group, Moscow went on a rampage, killing 28 people in Kyiv. But many a time, Trump refrained from directly criticizing the Russian leader. On June 29th, for example, Moscow launched 477 drones and 60 missiles against Ukraine. Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, on the sidelines of the 10-member ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting in Kuala Lumpur.
Well, our strategy is to continue to engage all the parties that are involved in finding an outcome to this conflict. We will engage any time that we have an opportunity to do so, like we did today. I echoed what the President has said, both disappointment and frustration at the lack of progress in peace talks or in a path forward. So we'll continue to engage. We shared some ideas and comments, which I'll take back to Washington.
As the world watches closely, whether Trump's criticisms provoke action remains unclear. The question is, amid disappointments and nice talks, will the Russia-Ukraine war have a peaceful future? This remains to be seen. With Neha Kumari, Bureau Report, India Today.
Days after US President Donald Trump announced an additional 10% tariff on all BRICS member states, an Indian delegation from the Commerce Ministry is set to visit Washington, D.C. for another round of trade talks between the US and India over tariffs. The discussions will likely be around both the interim and first phase of the bilateral trade agreement. India and the US have been holding talks aiming to finalize the first phase of bilateral deal by this fall. India will also seek clarity regarding the 10% tariff on import from BRICS nations. India has also proposed retaliatory tariffs against the US under the WTO regulations in May to counter US tariffs imposed on steel and aluminium as safeguard measures. The US had earlier levied additional 26% tariffs on Indian imports, but it was temporarily suspended till the 9th of July. The baseline tariff of 10% on all countries, including India, remains the same. India is looking forward to a complete exemption from the additional 26% tax after the conclusion of the talks between the two sides. Missiles for oil. That's the claim UK-based Middle East Eye is making. The report says China secretly armed Iran in exchange for crude, not cash. Beijing says it's a lie. But with tensions high and oil prices rising, is this a new shadow alliance or just political smoke? Rudrishish Kanjilal with this report.
Allegations of a covert missile deal between China and Iran are causing quite a stir across diplomatic circles. A report by a UK-based media platform, Middle East Eye, claims that Beijing quietly delivered surface-to-air missiles to Tehran, paid for not in cash but in oil. But China has strongly denied the accusation. Iran, hit hard by international sanctions, has long relied on oil diplomacy, offering crude in exchange for military supplies and technological components. Middle East Eye reports that Arab states were aware of the deal. The United States too had allegedly been informed, but within hours of the story breaking, China issued a sharp denial. The statement came from China's embassy in Israel. It emphasized China's long-standing non-proliferation stance, a position Beijing wants the world to take seriously. It's no secret that China is Iran's top oil customer. Over the past few years, Tehran has increasingly turned to Beijing as a key trade partner, especially as Western sanctions shut other doors. Earlier this year, reports surfaced that Iran had purchased tons of ammonium perchlorate from China, a chemical used to fuel ballistic missiles. Some estimates suggest it was enough to produce as many as 800 missiles. But when war broke out in April between Iran and Israel, China's support was conspicuously missing. Analysts believe that interests include protecting China's oil relationships with the Arab world. Nations like Saudi Arabia and the UAE are not only oil-rich, but also vital trading partners for Beijing. Supporting Iran too openly could jeopardize that balance. Instead, China is walking a diplomatic tightrope, portraying itself as a stabilizing force in the Middle East, rather than a military ally of Tehran. So, for now, Beijing is choosing caution over confrontation, hoping to protect its interests in both Tehran and Riyadh. But with every fresh report of weapons or oil, the spotlight keeps swinging back to China. So far, there's no concrete evidence backing the missile for oil allegations, and China is adamant it had no part in any such deal. But as tensions simmer in West Asia, even a rumor can shake global alliances. Bureau Report, India Today Global.
Twitter co-founder Jack Dorsey has unveiled a new offline messaging app called BitChat. Users do not need any Wi-Fi or internet connection to use this application. Here's a report of why this application is ideal for remote or low connectivity areas. Take a look.
Twitter co-founder Jack Dorsey has launched a surprising new messaging app, BitChat. What's unique? It works completely offline. No Wi-Fi, no mobile data needed. Instead, it uses Bluetooth Low Energy to connect devices and builds a secure, peer-to-peer chat network. According to reports, BitChat doesn't ask for a mobile number or email ID. No sign-in required. Just download and start chatting. The app uses encrypted messages that travel device to device with no central server. That makes it ideal for remote areas, crowded places, or even emergency situations with poor network access. Jack Dorsey called it his weekend project to explore Bluetooth mesh networks, messaging encryption, and more, calling it IRC Vibes on Platform X. Currently available in beta via Apple Test Flight, BitChat offers group chats, mentions, and password-protected conversations. All messages are end-to-end encrypted and disappear by default after a time. No data is collected. Everything stays on your device. With Meenakshi Chandelier, Bureau Report, India Today.
Elon Musk-owned X's CEO Linda Yaccarino steps down from the role in a surprise move just months after the social media platform was acquired by the billionaire's AI startup xAI. Her departure adds to the turbulence in Musk's sprawling business empire, including falling sales at his EV maker Tesla and AI-related controversies. Musk is also embroiled in a war of words with former ally President Donald Trump. Yaccarino did not give a specific reason for her decision. The resignation comes just one day after Grok, the AI chatbot developed by xAI, posted content referencing Adolf Hitler on the platform. The posts were later deleted following a public backlash. Musk thanked Linda for her contributions in a reply to the CEO's post on X. Linda took the top job in 2023 to help Musk transform the company after he bought it in a $44 billion deal. Under Linda, X introduced a range of new features aimed at turning the social media site into the everything app that Musk aimed for, including partnering with Visa to offer direct payment solutions and launching a smart TV app. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of World Today. But before we end the show, let's take you through a very interesting story. Mattel has released the first ever Barbie doll with type 1 diabetes. The mainline Barbie debuted alongside a one-of-a-kind doll made in the likeness of British model Leela Moss, who herself has type 1 diabetes. The doll's accessories include insulin patches, a continuous glucose monitor, and an insulin pump as a means to increase awareness of the condition and help young people with diabetes feel more confident. The launch of the Type 1 Diabetes Barbie doll continues Mattel's campaign for inclusive representation following previous releases like a blind Barbie and a Barbie with Down's syndrome. Thank you for watching. Goodbye and take care.